That was risky. You saw me just take a bite of that. I that wasn't even going to be part of the intro, but
Well, what are you eating?
well, it was, yeah, or I am. That's out of the package here, but yeah, Cranked energy bars.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really sad about the local sponsors of today
Yeah.
podcast. Snacks by the Winnipeg city here, basically. So we got cold brew from Sheepdog, and then Cranked. We've had Cranked on the podcast. We'll have Sean on soon, and that's how I guess we met, was through Sean and coffee. So cheers to me sliding in snacks right between podcasts here. Well, what do you having on your end? It looks like a sick mug, by the way.
Yeah, right. I got it in Vancouver Island, my favorite place to visit. Barely
Nice.
awake. I'm just drinking a really cheap coffee pod because I didn't really have time. I was doing some drone work earlier today and took a little longer than I expected, of course, like everything does. And so when I got back, I didn't have time to put on a full pot of coffee, so just made a quick little cheap black coffee, but that's okay. I don't mind it.
That's right. Well, you got to have the variety to appreciate maybe the nicer, the other stuff in there. You can't always have, the whatever. And I mean, that's one of the reasons. Yeah. I mean, we love grabbing these things. Number one, it's close to my house. Two, I don't always need the hot coffee. And sometimes I let my other coffee, either like pot of it or whatever, just sit, that my cup is sitting here. I'm just pulling from it. It's not really refreshing anymore. It's like half warm, half cold, but these are convenient that I don't have to make a whole pot. And then I'm hopefully not vibrating on caffeine partway through. But well, I mean, you must kind of live on caffeine given, kind of career and now with video editing and other things. So how important has coffee been to your existence in your career? And we'll shout it out all the way through here.
Yeah, it's been definitely key. And I probably drank way too much, but I think the experts are kind of in between whether it's healthy or whether it's not healthy. Most of the time, everybody's talking about the good benefits of it, but the odd time you hear somebody come out with like, well, maybe you shouldn't drink so much, might be hard on your stomach. But for me, it's more how many times I go to the bathroom a day, which really regulates how much coffee I drink because it's, if I drink too much, then I find myself just running too much. So I try and keep it down to, one large or in the morning instead of one at home, one when I get to work. Actually, it used to be one at home, one on the way to work, probably one when I got to work. Yeah, so it wasn't great. So, but I've learned to drink coffee black just because I wanted to try and reduce sugar intake and cream. And for the most part, you really find out how good a coffee is if you drink it black. So
very true. Yeah, you do find that out. My past life, I guess to some degree, I'm still traveling a bit on the road, but when I used to work in agriculture, it was I think the first time I even had coffee was at like a farmer's yard. It was I was a summer student, and the main rep, shout out to Jason Sputter, takes me there and everyone's having coffee, and out of kind of peer pressure, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll have one. And they're like, oh, how do you take it? And I was like, oh, they're like double. That was just like what my dad used to get when I was a kid. I actually had not really ever needed coffee. I'm kind of wired and going at 6 a.m. anyways. But that was the gateway moment in this farmer's shop and had this coffee. And I remember getting in the truck being like absolutely wired. And then from there, it just kind of became more of a social thing and then grew to kind of enjoy it in the mornings. So after workout, then have coffee anyways. But always kind of packing a coffee, or it's a nice thing to have in hand. Okay, let's get into it. It's what's going on these days? You're droning, you're flying. I try to fly them once in a while, but you're doing it at a whole new level.
Yeah, I was out today doing some drone work, a little bit windy, but I think we got good results. So that's the thing about droning. You just never know. You can have everything set up. You can have all the perfect circumstances, but you get there and even, something you just don't expect, because with such a perfect day, I thought, okay, let's get it done before the clouds come in. We'll be good. Right. And as I'm driving down the road, I could feel the truck shaking back and forth from the wind. I'm like, oh. And then of course there's power lines around. So, the circumstance change. It went from a quick flight to, well, we really got to, see if it's safe and make sure the wind's not too high. So yeah, it's constantly changing.
I think that identifies something that a lot of folks wouldn't know if they maybe haven't flown a drone. And I have a little bit of experience. I'm not even going to pretend I have anything close to it, but I might make a couple mentions to me silly flying my drone up and trying to follow me cycling or something. I got a couple of them. They're fun. They're cool tools, and I mean we do use them for some shoots, but that's something I think that people don't think about enough. Is like, hey, all this like pre-work, even going out to a site, and then when you get there, it's still definitely major, safety on mind, top of mind. This is not just I joke about it being a toy. Mine's it is a tool for work, but a lot of folks have them recreationally, right? And I a lot of those folks that the ones that they got from Costco end up in trees or in the lake or whatever it is, and they're just throwing it up whenever. But there's a lot to consider, and then it takes an extra time to set it up and have the shoot go right, and your time spent getting that shot is just, there's so much there. So, and we
Yeah,
live
for sure.
a windy spot. Ironically, you've chosen this thing, and it's frequently windy. It is, I'm sure it's often an issue for you being able to fly successfully. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, the drones that they're making now are incredibly powerful, and
yeah,
the gimbals are so well made. You can be in quite a bit of wind and you don't even notice when you're looking at the camera. You watch the drone flying, you can see it doing this, but when you
right.
look at the actual footage later, it's almost motionless. It's actually really incredible how they can build these drones. So, today
Yeah,
it was windy, but it's able to handle it. So some of the smaller ones, like the minis, probably would have had a bit more trouble. But
yep, that would have
yeah,
been me. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's such a cool, such a cool thing to do, is being able to go up in the air and look at a perspective that you just don't have. I mean, um,
yeah,
I always wanted to be a pilot, and just never really took the time to look into it. I got busy with other things in my life, and always really liked aircraft, love flying, love that perspective. And then, when I found out, hey, I can take a drone up and see that perspective, it's just so neat to see what's around you that you don't see. So
yeah.
that's really what got me interested. And yeah.
Totally makes sense. That was my enjoyment out of it too. But I think when you see the results of some of the content that's made nowadays, and I know you work on kind of some of like the B2B stuff as well, but like we'll say B2C when I see other pilots, and maybe it's even been some of your footage. I actually don't know this, but flying over the city, people do really resonate. And obviously we do too, if we're, saying this is with that perspective or, point of view of being above. And I don't know if maybe that comes from when you're just saying that, I haven't thought about this in a long time, but when you're a kid and I had this thought anyways, it'd be like so cool to fly, like what would that be like? And it really does give you obviously the bird's eye view of what's going on above. And we have this really keen interest in, I think, seeing that. And now that we showed it off more, people are more interested to see, hey, look, what does that look like from above? Whether it's high enough where you look like little ant people on the ground, over a farmyard, if we're talking about like, ag stuff, or checking crops on the more practical side of things, or showing off the city. There's these different viewpoints that we would have never been able to get ahead of like Jets games when they're going downtown. Someone's obviously taking that footage ahead of time, or maybe it is somewhat live now. I don't even know if that's possible, but you're flying through kind of the streets. You would never be able to fly a plane or a helicopter. That would be way too close. So we have all these different angles that people get to really appreciate. And I think that's why people love it so much, right? I mean, outside of like
Yeah,
the work
for
stuff,
sure.
that's cool. It's neat to see, right? You get to, I don't know, maybe that's why people like it. You're like a kid, you're like Superman flying over, and you get to like see that. But
Oh, there's definitely that aspect of it. The other part of it is too, I think everything is beautiful from 100,
it's cool.
200 feet up. You
Yeah,
don't really see the garbage. You don't see a lot of things that you see on the ground, and everything is beautiful. I've actually had a lot of people
right.
comment on that, even
That's interesting,
just like, hey, that looks really nice from there. But you get down a bit
right?
lower and it might be garbage or whatever, but you just don't notice it from up above. So,
Stephen, I think that might
and
have been a metaphor for life right there. I think we just went way deeper than maybe we intended today, but that was
yeah, I
beautiful.
like it.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue. That was just
No,
a
no.
moment that I had to.
Yeah, it's 100%. And I think that's why I chose the thermography part of it too.
Yeah,
Um, so over the last 5 years, I've got my level 1, level 2, and level 3 thermography certifications, and um, it just looking at an infrared camera, which really just uses heat and converts it to visible energy. or heat energy to visible light is just so cool, because you see what you can't see with the naked eye. And to me, you say Superman, right? When I was
Yeah.
younger, I always thought if I was going to be any superhero, be Superman, because A, he can fly, and B, he can see through walls and see through
Right.
everything. So
So
literally,
cool.
that's what I can do with the thermal cam, not through walls, but I can see
Yeah.
in a building envelope or a roof what the naked eye can't see of it. If there's air escaping, I can see that. If there's moisture, mold,
Interesting.
those kind of issues, I can see that, where you could be 10 feet away and you might see something on the
Right.
roof or something on the wall that you think is, oh, it's just wet or something. Or
Right.
but as far as the thermal images go, it really shows what's going on. So that's pretty cool, and it's just such a challenge to try and figure out what that is and decipher it. And I mean, a lot of the times that's not necessarily what we're doing. We're just looking for a difference in a surface. But and then the experts come in, like roofers or engineers, and can look through the rest of it as to why something's happening. But I, everything that I do is different. Every building I do is different. Every wall I look at is different. So I've never been much for the mundane. I like the change. I like something new, and that's just really cool. So
Yeah, that's awesome and really interesting because before we were talking about you doing how do we call it again? Thermography? Is that right?
yeah,
Or okay,
yeah,
make sure I'm not like
thermography, yeah.
thermography goofing this up on air here. There's but as you're getting into that, like that's such a different another different point of view from using drones and technology to see stuff very differently. Not only are you above it, but you're looking in at these like you said, like kind of like heat maps and analyzing different like leaks or whatever it might be from a building that could have a major impact on who's ever heating that building. All these things that are really business oriented, but otherwise we would not really be able to get, or maybe back in the day done differently by helicopter, I'm guessing. So not just throwing up a drone without discounting that. There's still a lot behind what you're doing, as you mentioned, with like wind regulations. Where are you doing it? Logging flight things. It's much like having a pilot's license, if not the exact
Yeah.
same. So
Oh, for sure. The Transport Canada, their standards are quite high. And I think there's a lot of people that are super annoyed and don't want to get their license, because they're like, well, it's pretty much like getting my drone pilot license. And like, you have to know
yeah,
aeronautical information. You need to know like what a pitot tube is on an aircraft, which shows the difference. Like, I'm probably
wait,
screwing it up, but between the
no, no,
airspeed and the ground speed, like, you have to know how the instruments on an aircraft work. You have to know,
yeah,
inches of mercury and air pressure and weather. You got to know all the weather, like cumulus clouds, everything.
oh,
It's like, why do I have to know all this stuff? I'm going to fly this drone up in the air and I got to know all this. But as it
yeah,
gets more complicated, and as you get into more of the commercial side of it, it does to a degree make sense. And a lot of the safety rules, they do make sense. And people think, well, I'm just flying in my backyard or flying here or there, or I'm in the middle of nowhere. What does it matter? But I can tell you, we had an experience in the
yes,
very northern Manitoba, where we were flying, doing some video for a company up there of their full site, and flying, I think, at like 250 feet, maybe, in the middle of nowhere. I'd done a Nav Canada authorization, which wasn't even required, but I just did it just to have it in there. Um, and like, we're so far from any regulated airspace. It's this Class G airspace. And, as I'm doing just some testing and seeing like range, this kind of thing, obviously, and what's my visual line of sight on any given day can be a little bit different, like how far you can see the drone, whether there's cloud, or if
right,
there's trees. Then there's so many things that can affect your line of sight. So doing some testing, and out of nowhere comes a helicopter at about maybe 120 feet over the
that's
trees,
close.
and with a bird, they call it a bird, hanging down about another 30 feet, which is a magnetometer. So they were actually looking for gold up north, and this helicopter was mapping that whole area. So,
Interesting.
had I taken that drone beyond visual line of sight and was just playing around
Right.
and, let's see how far it can go. Well, there's an actual
Yeah.
100% good chance I could have taken that person out. And that
Yeah.
really, when I say scared me, it didn't scare me, but it uh, it really hit home the reality of why they have these safety regulations and not to fly beyond visual line of sight, unless now they have extended line of sight, or they do have beyond visual line of sight standards that people are using now. But
Right.
um, the last thing you want to do is take down a manned aircraft or interfere with somebody in an aircraft. I remember taking a few pictures with a good camera. I can see the pilot in there as he's flying. I got that close and I thought, this is a guy it's a human with a family and a life or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've got this drone. Like, the last thing that I would want to do is be responsible for something like that. So it's
Yes.
understandable and I always tell people that story because they think, well, if I'm in the middle of nowhere, well, I was in the middle of nowhere, so that didn't help me. And you can have all the regulations you want, but there's always going to be people that just don't
Yeah.
care. They'll go buy a drone and fly wherever they want. And I'd say for the most part, there's not going to be an issue, and they might not have an accident, and most of the time it's okay. But when they do, it just makes it that much harder for people like me who are running a business and
Doing that.
and
Yeah.
doing actual commercial work. Then it makes it so much harder for us because people hate drones as it is. They do. Like, I've had people come up to me, threaten me, just doing, like, let's say, real estate photography or video in a city, not
Right.
even looking at somebody. I've had them come up and tell me they're going to
Right.
smash my drone or whatever. And it's
Yeah.
like, um, so if you add fuel to that fire, it just makes it so much harder.
Yeah, and sorry, my hair is going something funky here as you're trying to making an issue of it. There's well, my kind of and I remember us talking about that on a call before there, and that seemed nuts. And I had a similar one just to add in here. It was a plane, again, middle of nowhere, cabin country. I think it was one of the first weeks I had this thing, and it was just kind of getting more comfy with it. But I'm still like learning. This seemed like the safest place. The water's like still in the morning, nothing's going on, like literally, and it was kind of like your experience too. All of a sudden, nothing happening. Like I said, seemed safe. I was more nervous about like me crashing in the water or something. And as I'm like going up, all of a sudden it's just like this bush plane is just like coming over. It's someone with a on the lake, comes up like once a year, decides to show up that day. And I'm like panic mode, barely learned, figured this was like a safe spot, calm wind, whatever. And I'm like panicking. We weren't, it turns out not near it, but I'm still like, okay, it's right there. Like, and I just heard this noise, heart went racing through there. And not trying to whatever do anything different. It was like I almost needed to be in like a training facility for starting off, maybe instead of out in the wild like that. But it is a great reminder. Unfortunately, we do see that stuff, I guess, in the news like more than anything. I mean, the news is always going to be negative about whatever it is, the attention side of things. But on the other side, there's so many positive things that you can do, such as, and I kind of forgot about the real estate side, as you mentioned, right? That's super popular now, right? People want to
Yeah.
see, hey, where is my house on the map? That cool POV like we were talking about. That's people love that jam now. So even for everyday videos for houses, it's become standardized in a way. Like if you're not making that kind of content, people are like, oh, it's not that great of a house.
And yeah,
But,
the applications are really almost endless. Like, they're using them for tree planting.
right.
I guess they have either a ball of seed and feed and whatnot. They can shoot it with, I'm not sure what they use, CO2 or something, but they can shoot it deep enough into the ground that tree will normally survive. So they can cover an area that would take humans, let's say a full day. They can do it in an hour, right? Like, it's just insane what they can do. There's I know DJI just came out with a DJI cart, which can lift, I believe, up to 200 pounds. They're using that in construction sites. So they're lifting up different items instead of having to take those elevators or risk somebody going up to an area that's unsafe. They can use this cart now, which has a cable that just, obviously with a little grip, and when they want to let go, they lets go. If it gets caught on a tree or something, it's actually got a laser that'll cut the wire just in case it gets caught up. It's got a parachute built in. So I mean, leaps and bounds. Of course, delivery into areas where, let's say, somebody's having a heart attack, they can get a defibrillator or some type of emergency package to somebody that, let's say it's high traffic, that they would take it, half an
Yeah.
hour. They can do it in 5 minutes, right? So the
Interesting.
police are using it as drone as first responders. That's being used by several cities. I think we're even using it in Canada, where the drone is
Very
actually
cool.
on like a 4 or 5G connection. A police officer shows up at a scene. Let's say you got somebody with a knife or a weapon or something that's a dangerous situation. They can deploy the drone, and somebody in the communication center actually controls the drone, and the officer can go hands off. Doesn't have to carry the controller. They can look at a thermal image and see where the person is. They like, for as far as knowing your surroundings, it's
Right.
really good that way. So I mean, it's almost endless. Crash reconstruction. You mentioned agriculture, looking at plant health.
Yeah.
So, there's, I think, as far as I was concerned, the real estate market was the place to start, because um,
Right.
it was just, I needed to learn how to use the cameras, and that was maybe a year or two of really going a deep dive on your ISO and shutter speeds and all those kinds of different things, and different types of profiles for recording. Is just, that's a whole nother rabbit hole, but it was a good place to start. And
Yeah.
then I think it wasn't long after, maybe a year into that, these DJI minis, which have 4K video, they just got so good that every real estate agent just went out and bought their own. And
Right.
so that was kind of oversaturated, and so I was looking for something unique, and just like I said, the love for the inspection and thermal end of it was something that grabbed me. So that's kind of
Very
where I
cool.
went with it. Yeah.
I had to go pull up on the other screen. We don't have someone doing research
Yeah.
here yet. I did. When we shared, I haven't seen the robot thing, but I'm super curious to see it. I just went on DJI to check out their website. I mean, there's other companies too. Like I use one, the Hover one, more recreational. It's like the little self-line one, and it like follows you around,
Mhm.
more for like vlogging, I guess, kind of thing. That's a bit easier to operate. There's like 4 buttons on the whole thing, and it's like it just follows you. It's kind of creepy and cool. But it's so neat to hear you talk about like the journey in here. And now you got more like serious drones, and then knowing all the commands. I think we're talking about it from a perspective of like we have some experience. Obviously, you're at a different level of flying these things than I'm very baseline. But what's your favorite drone to fly? Because I know you got a few of them there, and I know that there's a few different ones in terms of like you can throw on goggles and have what's it even called?
Yeah, FPV.
Yeah. You're like flying out of that one's really out of like I think that one would freak me out. I don't really like heights, ironically. Like even when I'm
Yeah.
flying them, sometimes it weirds me out because I'm not good past like a 3-meter diving board. Even though it doesn't look that high, I'm like, I don't know if that's for me. So
I think that's
yeah,
really neat. I've actually never flown one, to be honest.
no,
Never
no,
done
it's okay.
FPV. Yeah, just I'd like to. I think they definitely have their place,
Yeah,
and they seem like a lot of fun. And there's, I mean, they've come so far too. The racing is just insane.
yeah.
Um,
It's like a
I,
sport. Like you go through like an obstacle course with
it is a
drones, right?
sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there was the movie
Wild.
Ambulance, which was I forget who
Hold on.
the
I'll look it
same
up.
person that did I think the Transformer movies, Michael Bay,
Okay.
I believe, maybe, but he actually chose one of the either world champion or one of the champion drone racers to fly their drone in a lot of their scenes. So that's pretty cool. Imagine, just learning how to race and then start racing, and you're just,
Yeah.
just the average dude going out there and doing that, or person doing that, and then all of a sudden somebody like Michael Bay or a huge studio comes and asks you to fly their drone. That's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars with amazing cameras and work with actors and stuff. And I mean, that's just so cool. But that's, I think, why I do this this is it's a side thing. This is what I want to do when I retire. And I think for me, it's more about the experience than anything. It's led to just so many cool experiences
Yeah.
and journeys that I never would have taken had I not done this. I mean, I could sit and watch Netflix on my days off and eat popcorn, but you know, why not do something that takes you places in life? And I've met so many people, and every day, every week, I meet somebody new, have new conversations. I mean, that's how we met, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
that's what it's about. If I don't make a penny, I don't care. Like honestly, I really enjoy it. I mean, that would be nice,
Yeah. Yeah. We like to get
of
paid all that
course,
stuff, but
but
yeah,
I think
well,
if you're doing something that you love, the money will come. Like that's a side effect of doing something that you love. So, um, it's it's the really the coolest thing that I could think to do with my life going forward is just um, I go on this journey and see where it takes me. So
that's awesome. I love that
yeah,
you talk about with such passion. I said this the other day too. I mean, obviously we have to make money as a company and stuff, but when you do something you love that you do it for free, I think that's when you can really have more freedom within the time because it just doesn't feel like work. And ultimately, we got to be responsible, run a company properly and stuff. But it's so cool to hear you talk about that. And every time since the day we met about talking about drones, it's just like this inner passion comes out. It's like a different version of Steven, or I'm sure you're passionate about everything else too, but this one specifically about drones is like, yeah, the thing. So it's great to hear that. And what are some of the projects that, like we mentioned these other industries and stuff, but what's one of the coolest projects that you've got to work on that you're allowed to talk about?
let's see. Yeah, like I mentioned before, there was videoing a site up north in Manitoba for a company that was a lot of fun, a huge site. And I remember that was probably my biggest learning experience. It was fairly early on, and I had some experience with film and making videos, that kind of thing, using kind of a cheaper software. So it forced me to go in to use a better software and learn that, which was inevitable. But again, it was the same idea where you have issues you don't expect and have to work around them, and that's really when you learn the most. So
Yeah.
that was a really good experience. I crashed a drone the week before that I was planning to use for film. So, um, and I was actually doing some testing, so had to buy a new drone, and then it was a used one, but it was the same one, but it had an issue with the camera that I couldn't see on the screen because the screen's pretty small. So it
Right.
was just a minute vibration. The gimbal wasn't quite centered. Something was happening. So
Shoot.
what would take, let's say 10 hours of editing took me probably 100 hours because I had to take every piece of footage, run it through separately in Premiere Pro, and remove that glitch. It took forever, but I learned a lot. I learned how much a job can take rather than
Yeah.
what you quote, right? There was that because it took so much
Right.
longer.
We've been there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was a uh, really cool project for me because I learned about both the filming aspect of it plus the video editing. So it forced me to learn some new techniques.
Right.
Um, I think doing a thermal building inspection last year on Portage Avenue, a high rise, that was a really good experience. That was a lot of fun. Um, uh, so we have one possibly coming up. We're supposed to be heading to Burlington, Ontario next week with CQ inspections, Canadian Quality Inspections. Jeff Winus there, he's the head engineer there. Well, head
Cool.
of his Martin, head engineer. But
Yeah.
we work with them. We do all their drone work, so they've got us on their website. That's been a really cool experience because, like I was saying before, there's a lot of things that I can do, but I'm not an engineer, so
Right.
I can't quantify that information, which someone like that can. So we work closely with some engineers, and then have
Yeah.
some opportunities to do some bridge inspections coming up and do some thermal testing on the bridge decks for delamination and spalling, and compare them with the results that the engineers get to see how this technology can be used. So there's some just awesome opportunities coming up.
That's really cool. I would definitely have not had bridges. What did you just say though? The words? What was it? Spalling and something else?
And delamination.
What is that all about? The lamination sounds like it's like the cover of something, which I don't know. What are you looking? I mean, I know you're not the engineer, but what is being seen there that could help with bridges necessarily?
Well, when the bridge decks are primarily made of concrete.
Yeah.
So if they start to with moisture sitting on it, whatever it might be, if they start to degenerate, they call it delamination or spalling. Now, I don't want to. I'd have to look up the exact
no, that's cool.
differences. I do understand what they are, but like I said, that's where the engineers come in, and they
totally
typically use like a hammer sounding or chain dragging, that kind of thing, to check for those issues. And
cool.
So yeah, that's some really neat opportunities.
Yeah, no kidding. Just like world's your oyster on that one. I definitely know, as we mentioned, like the more the agricultural use, just given my history in that space or whatever, worked with lots of farmers, and was just starting to be a thing. There'd be, farms starting to fly their own, or agronomists and stuff using them to go and analyze fields, which I think is like, neat. And I don't know if they were doing heat mapping. I'm sure, because that is kind of a more common thing after the fact, like heat stuff in grain bins and stuff. But I guess there is an aspect of that on fields, given different like seasonal stuff. But it's just neat to hear that basically we're adding that to everything now, in a way, just to make it easier. You don't have to have, like you said, other equipment. So by use of technology, we're able to save people climbing up or doing different, maybe dangerous things.
Yeah,
that's really sweet.
Yeah. So
yeah,
and I started last year or 2023, whatever it was, started volunteering with Civil Air Search and Rescue. So they did not have a drone program when I signed up. I really wanted to get into search and rescue and talk to WinSAR, like Winnipeg Search and Rescue, and I think it's Randy Antoniak, Antonio Antoniak. He's a retired police officer who used to run that ground search and rescue program there, and ended up, I think he's running it now. Still, like, has a lot. He's quite involved with it, even though he's retired. But he's like, do you want to like walk in through bush and all that kind of stuff? No, maybe I don't want to do that. I know I really do want to do the drone aspect of it. So I looked around, and Civil Air Search and Rescue was a good opportunity to start. So we get qualified as a spotter in an aircraft and a Cessna. This is based out of St. Andrews Airport. So that was a good place to start. And my initial plan when signing up for that was eventually to do a drone program. So the drone program started last year with the help of Dan Perron and geez, there's so many names I don't want to leave out, but Dan is kind of like the main training officer, and between him and I, we're kind of the what would you call it, like the pilots in command there now. We're certified through 17th Wing, the Canadian Air Force.
Cool.
Who does our certification so that we can take callouts from the JRCC and use the drones, deploy them in a search and rescue situation. So we've been training for well over a year now, building that program, bought a trailer. We're still outfitting the trailer as we speak, like over the last few days and months leading up to, the last few days they've been working on it now that it's warmer.
Yeah.
We have satellite on there, and it's just, it's really good. We haven't had a call out yet, but we're also just really developing that program, and had the opportunity, I think it was 2 weekends ago, Northern Search and Rescue came out. So we had members from Casera that are from Iqaluit, Baker Lake. There was another area in Nunavut, Thompson. So they came down and trained with us, and were able to take home some drones. So, and again, this is the thermal technology, which is why I think I'm really enjoying it. Like we can use that for searching for lost individuals or aircraft, whatever it might be. And
yeah,
I'm able to offer that. I wouldn't say expertise, but the experience that I have with those drones has been very helpful. So, and honestly, what I know, like, dude, I am no expert. I'm
I was
by
just gonna
far
call you on your
no.
your BS there, because I think you are. You're just
When
casually teaching people. Yeah.
No, when it comes to drones, like, really, I'm the tip of the iceberg. There's so many people that have so much more knowledge. Like, you get surveyors or engineers and whatnot. So for me, it's all learning as I go, and YouTube, and
very humble.
yeah.
I feel like you're further along the journey than perhaps leading on to there. But I feel like this is such an obvious thing though too for search, because if before it was done by plane and you're flying over, and again, I'm not an expert on this one, but you're going over so fast, whereas in a drone you're able to maybe see, or maybe it's the same, I don't know, but it seems like you have a better perspective looking almost like right under the drone with how the camera can angle and stuff. Is that not like a no-brainer?
It certainly has its place. You're right. Like, depending on what the situation is, and there's so many different situations. For example, if you have an aircraft that stalls and goes down, you could fly over it with another aircraft and not even see it. It can go straight into the trees.
Yeah.
And if there's no damage with the treetops, then it'd be almost impossible to find. And again, I'm not saying we're going out looking for aircraft that's down, because generally what'll happen is every aircraft has a ELT, which is like a device that sends a signal up to a satellite and notifies the powers that be, the JRCC, if an aircraft goes down.
Right.
So the first thing they would do is, from what I understand, they'll send out the Herc from 17th Wing.
Neat.
And then do an initial search to try and triangulate that area where that ELT signal is coming from.
Yeah.
And then once they have it down, they can narrow the search to either ground search or a smaller aircraft like a Cessna. And then from there, you can narrow it down even more with a drone and ground search and rescue. So I think it'd be very helpful because of the thermal aspect of it. So even an aircraft in a more built up area with trees, you won't see somebody moving around down there generally. A thermal camera, you can see through a lot of foliage. Like I haven't found an actual person doing that, but in searches for dogs, we've done some dog search and rescues, and you can see, like, let's say, for example, deer that run into the forest that's got leaves on the trees. We can see right through that. It's amazing, actually. So, but it's a bit more of a specific use case, because you really do have to narrow it down as far as where you're searching. But riverbeds, very good, because you can search slowly either side. If someone's hanging on, or they've capsized, or they're in a river, then you can do a slow search from it's from two different angles, and find somebody that way. So definitely has its place. But yeah,
interesting. This is gonna be a dumb question. I wrote it down. I cannot ask it now. That's super sweet. I love that explanation. And I think you're, again, being very humble about your experience in flight. And but do you guys have like flight names and stuff? Like, you're basically a pilot. They're like, like Top Gun. do you have that established yet? Because if not, I feel like you should, and then have like little name stickers and stuff on your drones.
That would be fun. I know we don't, but I'll definitely bring that up tonight. We have a meeting tonight, and I'll say we need to have some names.
Mav. I mean, you got to get more custom. You can't really go off of the film, I think, in terms of copying that. But well, when we do a 2.0 of this, we'll have to find out what your flight name will be. Your name on here.
I like it.
Yeah. SS something, I think, would be a fitting one. I don't know what it would be, but you'll come up with that, I'm sure. on the other end. So that's awesome. And what's been one of your favorite shoots? I know you talked about lots, and it sounds like they're all because you're passionate about this. Probably all favorites in a way, but what's been one of the highlights of so far?
Like a video shoot?
Yeah.
For sure, Vancouver Island
Yeah.
and Cowichan Bay. That was probably my favorite.
Cool.
Yeah, that was one of my first ones that I did for film, and it was in the Cowichan Bay, but also of Mount Zuhalem.
Okay,
And
what's that?
it's
That's in
just
Vancouver?
it's on the island, yeah,
Okay.
near I guess Duncan, BC, kind of the Cowichan Valley. But there's a lot of cyclists that use it, Mount Zuhalem,
Sweet.
and so they'll bike up, bike down. They got some really cool bike paths in there with I don't know if you call them ladders or horizontal ladders, I guess. You know what
Yeah,
know what I'm
yeah.
talking about, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do cycle bit. Like the mountain bike style stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, sick. Yeah, yeah. They'd be like
And
ladders.
crazy
Yeah.
stuff, right? Like
Oh my
crazy
gosh.
stuff. So
Yeah. Neat.
the reason I mentioned that, I know I made a YouTube video, and it was just of the different bays on the Vancouver Island, and it was strictly just for B-roll, for fun, because uh, I love the island. It's my favorite place in the world, and so I thought, making a video of that so I can enjoy it and other people can enjoy it, and that's where I think right off of YouTube, um, the first person that noticed my video asked me if they could use my video for a documentary, because they were doing a documentary of cyclists on Mount Zuhalem.
Very
And
cool.
so it took me about, a second and a half to decide, sure, go ahead, use my video.
Yeah,
So yeah, that was pretty cool.
that's very
Um,
neat.
yeah. And, you know, sorry, just checking something. Ended up really being like I guess more of a mentor than anything. So yeah.
Very cool. No, it sounds like, I mean, yeah, passionate cyclist here. So yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds like a sweet view or perspective too. I mean, we mess around with some stuff and I only get creative between like drones that follow. That's not always perfect. You do need someone else following you, I think, to get a really good POV on that ultimately. Like, can only be so close to you. There's some flaws with trying to fly your own stuff that are self-flying or cameras on you. So that makes lots of sense. Um, Anything that we missed today, Stephen? I'll just point blank ask you. Is there anything else that we wanted to chat about?
No, I don't think so. I
Yeah,
mean,
I think it's been
we could
awesome.
do this again. I could
Yeah, well,
this
we
is
have to.
I could
After you
talk
come back with
hours about this. And
a flight name or whatever, what do we even call them? Like flight nicknames, I guess. What's the technical
yeah,
term?
maybe your flight
Yeah, yeah.
handle.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you totally need that. Yeah, we'll talk next time when that comes to fruition. And Stephen, how do people get a hold of you? We'll have it listed below, but just say it aloud here. They go through the website for you guys.
You can go through the website,
Yeah.
Exceptional Drone Services Canada, or
Yep.
Exceptional Drone Services at Google, or at gmail.com, or info@exceptionaldroneservices.ca.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think our number's listed on there. Give us a call. And you know what? If it's something we haven't done yet, and it's something that we can learn, don't be afraid to ask. Our first
Yeah.
flight was actually doing a thermal scan. Not our first. The first real commercial job was somebody contacting me and saying, "Hey, can you do a roof scan of this huge building?" And I was like, "Sure." I didn't even have a thermal drone, so
I love that.
but I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely, I can do that." And then they said, "Okay, so we'll you know what a KML file is? We'll send that to you." I'm like, "Absolutely," and I'm googling what is a KML file.
That's so
So
class. That's a great way to
you
anything
know,
here. Like that's classic entrepreneurship.
right? You just
Yep, 100%. You
uh,
say yes.
100%. There's certain things that obviously we can't do, like
Right.
quantify surveying information, that kind of thing. But uh, a lot of stuff I think that in life anybody can do. You just need to go out there
Yeah.
and learn it, and you don't need to go to university. You don't need to go to college. There's a lot of things like, yeah, if you need a certification, obviously you can do that, but um, filming a lot of the thermal aspects, I did go through schooling for that, but a lot of the other stuff is just watching YouTube videos. And that's the great thing about YouTube is you can find information on almost anything. So, if you sit down, you take the time, take a couple hours, every day to just learn, then you can do almost anything. It's awesome. So
totally agree. I mean, that's awesome. Awesome advice to wrap up the pod today. So Stephen, thanks for making time.
Yeah.
We'll end it here. We'll chat soon.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Okay.